How's it going? This is the part two contender analysis after episode 5 of Survivor. And Jeannie, let's talk about her first. I had her between number 8 and number 13. I never really had her too much higher. We didn't get a super fleshed out strategic story about Jeannie, and that essentially was her downfall. She wasn't really able to handle the high level of advantages and strategy and thinking a couple steps ahead, like the other two members of her tribe. She found this advantage and she squandered it, and it was even more frustrating because she had to know exactly what the advantage of because Brad told her about it. So I think part of the issue with Jeannie's edit was we never really got to understand her and Brad's tight relationship, and I think it was because it's not important because they're both eliminated. And I don't think she really built the correct bond with Shan. Shan ought to have been a target for anybody other than Ricard early on in that tribe. And so I think Jeannie trusting Shan was ultimately her downfall. Them losing all those challenges was also a downfall too. And so we didn't get a great edit about Jeannie being a challenge provider or being strong in the challenges. And so I think all those factors together made it a tough go for Jeannie. But yeah, she never really had a winner speak to her, and so it's sad to see her go. This wasn't like the JD blindside last time where JD was getting a lot of good winner content. We did get Jeannie's kind of storyline about her family accepting her being, marrying somebody outside of her culture and somebody who's the same gender and so on. But that storyline, that personal storyline, didn't seem to continue. And this episode, we did get very strong personal storylines from other people. And so I think that's going to be important when we're looking at the contender as we move forward with the season. So let's start from the top. And number one, once again, Tiffany. Tiffany's been number one for me from the start of the game. And Tiffany had yet another really good episode. We got to see Tiffany really be in the center of the drama in the Yellow Tribe. She was the one who kind of egged Liana on to look at Xander's stuff. At the same time, Xander was the one trusting Tiffany and wanted to talk to her about his advantage. So Tiffany found herself in the middle. She got knowledge from Xander directly about the idol. She called him out. She had some good lines about saying, hey, I'm always on the ball. I'm 24/7 on this. Even Xander had a bit of a confessional saying Tiffany works with delinquent kids, and so maybe she'll find it in her heart to forgive me after this. So Tiffany's finding herself in a bit of a powerful position within that tribe, and we keep getting reminders of Tiffany's job, and Tiffany's starting to show that she has a bit of a handle of the strategy. She wants to get on top of the advantages. She has everyone in the tribe essentially working with her, from Liana on the one side to Xander on the other. And so I think she can probably integrate herself well in any type of post-swap version of her tribe, and we'll see how she integrates with others. I'm worried about her Sydney situation, and so this went all the way back to when Brad, Sydney, and Tiffany were there in this other prisoner dilemmas type of situation, and that all amounted to nothing because Brad left with his steal a vote in his pocket. So the only relevant storyline from that specific scene was Tiffany and Sydney. And so I'm curious to see how that specific situation plays out. That's Tiffany's one flaw, but otherwise she has a really good edit. We got a lot of personal content from her. We have her whole pre-Vivor story. If that whole Yasa is the tribe that can keep kicking storyline plays out, then maybe Tiffany will start to gain momentum. She's had to win this challenge, but she has started to show that she is a bit of a challenge asset. So I still feel good about Tiffany as number one. No flaws from her this episode. Number two is Shan. And so this is the episode of Shan. I had Shan at number two. I almost feel it's too much over visibility. We got that personal content from Shan once again on her journey with Liana about, I've been through foster care, I've been through a gang, and I'm a pastor, I'm giving it back, and I went to church with this one girl who recommended me to do it. She talks to Liana as this personal moment about people of color and how we should work together and how we will be a really strong duo, how she really emotionally bonded with her in a way that she hadn't with Ricard or with Jeannie as well. And so I believe that this Shan-Liana relationship is a really important storyline moving forward. I think Shan is certainly a player in this game. People are thinking that, she's going to be the star of the season, but is she going to win or not is the next question. Is she going to make it to the finals or get voted out in Final Four? And we'll chat about the Final Four vote later on, but it's going to be really fascinating to see how Shan's going to play out. There were some flaws in her edit too, and the people who think that she's so visible she's gonna win, they're not seeing these flaws. The relationship with Ricard is messy at best. They're gonna stab each other. Shan had no reason to go to Ricard and really push him hard to give back that advantage to her, and it didn't work. Shan was made to look like a bit of a fool, and she was seen to be a little bit aggressive, saying, "You want me to use my advantage?" I don't know ever in Survivor if it's a good idea to pick the strategist over the loyalist, the way that she phrased it out. You want to bring the loyalist. You think of so many other seasons of Survivor. Tony with Wu, that's one example. And previous season, Tony with like Denise and with Ben. You want to bring people who are loyal and are going to stick with you no matter what. Ricard's sneaky, and we even got her on her journey with Liana saying, if I don't come back, don't trust Ricard. She's willing to throw Ricard under the bus, I guess, preemptively in case something happens. So I don't know about Shan having the full, well-rounded edit or whether it's a downfall edit. She's kind of this like positive villain, but we'll see how she interacts with the other tribes because we do have connections now as viewers with people like Naseer and with Evie and with Deshawn and with Sydney and with Xander. And so we'll see how she interacts with them and if she's given a positive or a negative tone. She's still number 2 because she's the most visible. We know her the best. She's strategically, probably, from our eyes, the strongest player in the game. So we'll see. We'll see with Shan. Number 3, I have Sydney. And so Sydney's still my top pick on the Blue Tribe. And the Luvu Tribe is difficult because we haven't really seen them come to blows and hit tribal. But Shan has this like very wrong Michelle winning-esque quote where she's out swimming, she's a mermaid, and she's just like, I can be the provider. Do we even really need guys on this team? That's all me. And this is very similar to Michelle's winter confessional, where it was a whole situation with her and Nick, where it's hold up, bro, I can handle myself, where Nick was being a little bit mansplaining to Michelle. So Sydney has a really interesting edit that's starting to evolve, where we haven't really seen any strategic chops. The only real strategy we've seen her in was when Erica targeted Sydney, and then the whole tribe basically went to tell Sydney what was happening and wanted to protect her. And we got Naseer calling her a double agent, which was a little bit of negative SPV that she had dealt with over there. But Sydney keeps getting visibility for somebody that's really not involved with the storylines at all. I feel like there's something to Sydney's edit. We keep getting reminded of her. We got good content from her, even from the first episode, talking about how she just loves adventure. I don't understand where we're getting this content. Like, we're not getting that content from Erica or from Heather. So we're getting that content from Sydney, which means that Sydney is really an important player this season. Maybe she's the winner. Maybe she somehow orchestrates her downfall of Shan. But we just don't know enough of her strategy yet. So it's going to be curious to see how Sydney navigates through as the game starts to get more intense. For number 4, this is a jump up, and this is Naseer. And so Naseer is certainly given a positive edit. We now have 2 confessionals from his personal life. The first of which was about his life back in Sri Lanka, and the second one was about his daughter hiding idols. And so, from him finding this idol, and it was given this like really like momentous moment, the way that the editors did it, where we didn't even know if he had it. We're kind of on edge because we kind of want Xander, we kind of want Shan as the viewer to have their idols activated because they're interesting players. And so Naseer got it. All their idols are basically activated now. And then in addition to that, we did get some good strategic content from Naseer, where he's being now brought in to really the core strategy of that tribe, which is the Danny Deshawn side of thing. And we're seeing Naseer being brought into the Danny Deshawn conversations. We had Naseer essentially state, I do not want to throw the challenge, which was really interesting because it chose not to, and Naseer was really the one to pull it out at the end once again for Luvu to keep them from going to tribal council. So I think Naseer does have some gameplay to him. We have gotten consistent content from him. He now has an idol, so we start to see a bit of a path for him as long as Liana doesn't steal it. He has a really interesting storyline about fire. And every season, you want to look to see who is the fire person. And Naseer built the fire instead of Deshawn early on. There was this breakdown that Sydney had, and then he's like, oh, thank you, I have the flint again. And then again, one of the reasons why he didn't want to throw the challenge was because he wanted the flint for the fire. And he didn't want to lose that. So in Survivor, they have the Final 4 fire-making challenge. And in that fire-making challenge, whoever the final four is, one person wins individual immunity, and then they're safe. They pick one person to take with them to the final three, and the other two, their only way to stay in the game is to fight it out through a fire-making challenge. Alternatively, sometimes a fire-making challenge is brought in as a tiebreaker at other points. For example, if it's a 1-1 tie or a 2-2 tie, they may have a fire-making challenge, but might even occur pre-merge if they have these smaller tribes through a tribe swap or whatever they end up doing. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this fire storyline stick with this year. I actually put a lot of stake in that ever since Ben had the fire storyline in Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers season 33. And then Ben ended up winning the fire making challenge to get himself into the final three. This has always been something that I think the educators look at. And so, Naseer, you're not Tiffany or Shan level. You don't have that like weird kind of winner random quotes that Sydney has, but he has consistent content. He is a hero. This is a show that, you know, the season they're trying to make it more kid friendly, so maybe they want a nice heroic man to take out all the villainous players in the game. So it could be Naseer as the winner. I actually have him as a very valid contender pick now, especially after all the personal content he's been getting. For number 5, I'm just looking through my list. Who did I put as number 5? Number 5, I must have skipped. Oh, number 5 is Evie. Sorry about that pause, everybody. So with Evie, it's kind of standard course with Evie. We got that huge episode from Evie earlier on. With Evie, this episode, she ended up working with Xander a little bit more, and so we're starting to see her position herself. But we didn't get much more content from her. We didn't really get a lot of content about how she felt about maybe betraying Tiffany and Liana. We're still getting very that strategic analysis, not really that personal analysis from her. So I'm still a little bit on edge with Evie. I think she's an important player, but we haven't gotten much more from her other than her strategic mindset. So once things start to shift up, we'll see if her and Deshawn work back together, anything like that, and we'll see if those previous connections she made become valuable storylines, and then she might be able to move up. Number 6, I have Ricard, and this is probably like the end of like the real contenders of this season. Ricard, I think he's getting outplayed by Shan. He's being eclipsed by Shan. This episode was really about Ricard being the second fiddle, and so we did get probably the most Ricard we've gotten so far this season, because we had this whole conversation with Jeannie. I wanted to see Ricard really truly consider working with Jeannie and really fully analyzing what it would be like to discard Shan, but we didn't get that content. I think it's being protected. If Ricard is such a strategist, I think he would really start to think about cutting Shan more than he has been, and they haven't shown that content. So I feel for him a little bit. He had this weird kind of confessional from the start, which to me seemed like downfall, which is like, we are the powerful duo controlling the game, strategically controlling the game. I'm like, buddy, you're on the tribe of now 2. Like, look at Blue, at least they have 6 players. You haven't even interacted with 12 other players in this game. You're not part of the game yet. This is pre-merge. I think he's thinking too many steps ahead. He's given kind of weird villainous content. We still have good content, good consistent content from him, and we know him as one of the main strategic players in the game. He now has the additional vote that JD got from episode 1 in his pocket. So he has some tools. He's at 6. It's a bit of a dip, but I think we'll see how he navigates with other players without Shan protecting him, and if he really is able to kind of grow out of his shell. In the back half of players, I don't really feel strong about any of them. At the top of the back half is Xander. We got a little bit more visibility from Xander. I had him slipping 7 to 8 to 10. He's back at 7 now. His idol's activated now. We saw him start to build something with Tiffany. It kind of failed. It looked kind of like a poor move from his part. But we're at least understanding that Xander is working to build himself back in the game. We never got that content from Xander about, hey, like, I'm surviving on this tribe. We could have had this amazing storyline about how Xander is doing his best to keep the tribe strong and win challenges, and he's worried about the tribe throwing a challenge and voting him out. We never got that content from him because we're not meant to really, I think, cheer for Xander as much. We just like him because he's a cool kind of guy. but we aren't getting a lot more. I don't think he's the winner. I think his content really has to step up significantly. If he's the one to really entirely betray the Yasa 3 and join up with Blue or team up with Shan moving forwards, I think that would be really cool to see and would really help his odds. But we need a big gameplay move by Xander for him to be kind of back in the mix here. Number 8 is Deshaun, and Deshaun is relevant. Deshaun seems to be the strategic engine of the Blue Tribe. He seems to be in the mix. He has a connection with Danny. He has a connection with Sydney. He had a connection with Erica. But we're not getting enough from Deshaun, and part of this is, I think, because Blue hasn't gone to Tribal. We did see him chat a little bit with Danny at the water about throwing the challenge, and then nothing else. So Deshaun, we did get that personal content from him on one of his journeys, and so I think he's still in the mix, but he's number 8. For number 9, number 9 we have Danny. And so when it comes to Danny, we got some good content from him about working with Naseer, but he has this weird paranoia about all the guys being voted out, which I guess is somewhat accurate, but it was a little bit weird to see as this is kind of Danny's first real discussion of strategy to the camera. And we never really got a lot from him about whether or not to throw the challenge. He kind of seemed to be in the middle of Naseer and Deshaun and ended up siding with Naseer. But we don't really understand why he would even want to throw the challenge. We don't understand how he feels about Erica, what that relationship is about. And so I think we're not getting a lot from Danny. His content's too mixed. But because he's back in the mix, because we heard from him a little bit this episode, I bumped him up a little bit. So he's here at 9. 10 is Liana. And so we got content from Liana. She got this huge knowledge as power advantage. I think if she's the winner, this would have come with a lot more fanfare, a lot more music. It would have been a lot more of a dramatic decision. We got this whole journey with Shan and Liana. We heard a million things from Shan. We heard nothing from Liana. I feel like Liana's going to be a second fiddle to Shan. She's at the bottom of the dynamics of the Yellow Tribe because Evie and Xander kind of starting to work with Tiffany, and then Tiffany still probably trust Evie over Liana. And so I don't know how she even fits within the scope of her own tribe. Shan is such a sneaky player. I don't know how much you can rely upon that alliance as well. And we don't have a lot of personal content from Liana. We had a little bit from her from about making a big move in the one episode, but not much more. So Liana is still pretty low for me, which is weird because the Edge community online loves Liana, so I don't know if they read spoilers or something. 11 is Erica. We got nothing from Erica. And then 12 is Heather. We got nothing from Heather. So these two are at the bottom. Because they're just not visible, we did get a little bit of content from them that one episode when it looked like Blue may have been throwing a challenge to go to Tribal. So you got some drama about Erica messing up that challenge and how she's a survivor still and how Erica's a lion. But it was really just the whole tribe wanted to target Erica after that. So these two, we'll really have to see how they navigate post-swap. But given the fact that we have very strong female edits from other players, namely Tiffany, Shan, Evie, and even Sydney, it's very unlikely that they're trying to protect Erica or Heather. And this is something that's said a lot in Survivor, which is female winners tend to have more lower key edits than male winners. Like, they tend to be edited more as under the radar type of players. Certainly, if Erica or Heather wins, they are an under the radar type player. And under the radar players win. But under the radar players like Sydney win, who still get content every week, kind of like Michelle and Ko-Rong. Those type of players are the ones that win. Like, the example that's always mentioned is Natalie in Survivor Samoa, who beat Russell at the end. A lot of talk on that season was about Russell losing, which was a very one-off way that Survivor edited a season. It was more about the Russell story and why he lost, and a lot of that content is because they wanted to see how Russell would compete against real star players in Survivor's Heroes versus Villains, and they wanted to edit him as the ultimate villain to really sell that season. So they don't have it anymore in season 41. Like, we are just viewers. We're not viewing this to view some gimmicky next season. So I think even if you're an under the radar player, you are still given quite a good edit. You can almost argue Sarah in Game Changers had a bit of an under the radar edit, and she still had really good content. So I don't see either of them really making a go at it. And so I know it's another long one, but yeah, from top to bottom, it's Tiff at number 1. Shan number 2, Sydney number 3, and then Naseer has moved up to number 4. So we'll see how those 4 navigate come the swap, and I think that's going to be very telling. The first episode is always a really important episode to understand who the best winner odds are, and then it's also the merge episode. So if this is like the quote unquote merge episode, even though there's going to be some twists, we'll see who starts to really handle this pressures of the strategic elements of the game moving forwards here. So it should be a good episode come week 6, and we'll chat soon. Take care, everybody.